Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Mr. BuildWealth back at it again. If this is your first time joining me, I am here to share some information and resources that can help you get started with building wealth. And before I get started, I want to make sure that you all know where to find me. And you can do that at my website, thebuildwealthmovement.com. So if you got questions around what I do, how I'm going about disrupting generational poverty, you can read all about it on my website. Got some good materials and articles on there, my blog section, and you'll see kind of how I approach financial planning or financial advising or financial coaching or financial counseling. And just take a look. We have some time. I think you'll understand that financial planning isn't that complicated, or it's not as complicated as some make it out to be. And so I try to take a very kind of subtle approach, or simple approach, if you will, to ensuring that people can move forward with their lives and achieve their financial goals. So the topic for this session is, how valuable is your degree? And I wanted to really come on and talk about this one because I'm, as always, having conversations with people that I know, and I'm seeing what's out here on the internet and social media and the media itself. And we've put a lot of, we've shown a very bright light. The spotlight has been on education for a very long time. And I understand it because, especially for certain communities, getting an education of some sort is life-changing, right? And I think about the people who talk about, like, back in the day when, you couldn't go to certain schools and you had to go to work because you had family obligations. And a lot of those are our parents, right? Maybe they did or didn't go to school, but they worked very hard, became very successful in life, and then they kind of pumped education like down our throats. Like, I knew when I was born, like, I was going to college before I even knew it. But as I've gotten older and gotten into my professional career, I'm starting to challenge, like, one, our educational system in this country, but also just how valuable is that piece of paper that you got? And this is definitely a financial decision here, because I know a lot of well-to-do people with a shit ton of debt, and I'm questioning them, like, how good was that degree that you had to finance? Now, if you're going back and getting education or certifications or designations or licenses, and somebody's paid for them, or you got some sponsorship, I mean, if it wasn't come out of pocket and you were able to pursue these degrees or education, then you're winning. But the overwhelming majority of a lot of my clients have a ton of debt. And they had that debt right out of undergrad. And then a lot of these people, because education has been pumped down our throats so much, first it was, well, you got to college, and now it's, do you want to get an advanced degree? So now you couple a loan from undergrad, maybe for grad, and then if you want to keep going, you can see how this debt piles up. And so a lot of us have maybe not been willing to challenge the status quo and saying, do I need more education at that type of a price? Because I've had friends who have gone to colleges and universities where they damn sure couldn't afford it, but it was kind of like on their list. Like, I have to go to this school to get this degree, this piece of paper, because of their network. And if you notice, like, a lot of people did not finish school and have become like multimillionaires or billionaires. And so what you see is this, we have kind of this conflict, is how important is the formal system of schooling? Because most people are getting into debt well over, like, I'll say outrageous limits to get this piece of paper from pick your favorite university, versus these people who have just become very successful at entrepreneurship and business, right? So we got these two competing priorities. But what I found is the people who have gone the formal educational route, they're learning like business out of a book. And there's nothing wrong with that, because somebody else has done it. So therefore you're learning from them, and maybe you can avoid some of those pitfalls, versus the entrepreneur who maybe didn't have all the money to go to school. But what you find is that successful entrepreneurs in any industry are ferocious readers and learners. Like, they never stop. And it's literally because they can't. Like, they can't afford to rest on some piece of paper that they don't have. And so their piece of paper, their degree, pretty much comes from the school of hard knocks, right? So there's no paper that says you started a business when you were 19 and now you're 45 and you're a bazillionaire. So I don't think you're necessarily right or wrong, But I have, an undergraduate degree and I haven't, gotten a master's or anything else. And so I find that we have this conflict where I don't think your degree has been that valuable. Like, I think you could have learned a lot of the stuff you learned in your program and probably still been successful at it and probably could have gotten it at a fraction of the cost. It's like the people I speak to around, like when your kid isn't necessarily ready for a 4-year school, they go anyway and waste all that damn money and drop out. As opposed to like going to a community college, taking some of those GE courses, getting those out the way. So by the time you are ready to transfer, you can just hop into your major and be in and out in 2 years. So I don't know how valuable a degree is at this point because I'm just seeing this other side, like the entrepreneurial side, where I have people who didn't go to school, who they've made investments in their education, but not in the hundreds of thousands. Right? They're not starting their job or taking the job because they have to pay back this student loan. And the problem I'm seeing with these degrees and the folks, again, somebody's going to watch this and say he's talking to me directly, because I think it's unfortunate that you've gotten through all this schooling and now you got a job that's just not paying you enough to even survive, or you're barely just getting by on a salary because of the profession you've chosen. And there are a lot of professions that you're not getting paid, but yet people do it because they care about the work. And I was speaking to a young lady yesterday. She's a social worker. And they ain't making no money nowhere. Like, so, and they force you, like, to get your license. Most of them have to go back and get a master's. And then they have to log all these hours to get licensed. And then you actually come out not making that much money. So you've gone through all of this schooling. You have the really big heart. Like, you care about people. Social workers do incredible work, but they do not get compensated for the work that they do. For all the stress and the stories they hear, the clientele they serve, it's tough work. It's tough on like the mental, just because you're seeing a lot of people in despair, but they're never going to make a lot of money, or it's going to take them a very long time. And so then you flip the coin versus somebody who didn't go to school, who just started working and kind of worked their way up through a particular industry and then launched their own business. And now they're very successful, making a lot of money, and they don't have all the student loan debt to pay back. And so you gotta figure out, like, is more education really the answer? Because I think the older that I get, I have begun to think that education is very important and learning is important. But we have to really begin to think about, what is it that you really want to do? And should we be making investments in those specific specialty like areas versus wasting a lot of money going to these schools and degree programs where you're paying for, I guess, the name. You're paying for this quote unquote network that you're going to have access to. Maybe you're paying for all of that. Maybe you're paying for the football team or some other sport or activity on campus, because when you really boil it down to what you're paying for, you're paying for this curriculum where, I don't know, 67% of the shit I learned in college, I have not applied in my professional life. So I love my HBCU. I love A&T. I love my 4 years there. But when I really look at like my friends who came out of school with debt, who went to A&T, I'm like, hopefully you're doing something in your career field which made it worth all that money. Because here's the problem that I see now with my clients is, you've been told that get a degree is your gateway to success, to prosperity. And that's cool if you're going a certain route in your career. And then at some point you realize you're not going to be boss at your company. All your degrees haven't really amassed or resulted in getting that position that you always want. So you got all this debt. Somebody's telling you or kind of hindering your growth or stopping your growth. And then you're kind of lost. And so I have clients now who make a shit ton of money. And they're like, I hate my job, but I got a car note. A car loan. I got kids. I got college funds. I got retirement. I got savings. I got investments. I have real estate I want to do. And they got all these competing priorities. So now we kind of have, as everybody knows, these kind of golden handcuffs where it's almost too good for us to leave. And so we don't. And so we go through this miserable life of working for somebody else forever and then hopefully retiring with a whole lot of money. That's the majority of America. And I have clients now that I'm not telling you to go be an entrepreneur. Everybody should not be an entrepreneur. I think everybody should have a side hustle, because we all have a lot of talents that somebody would pay us for. And a lot of us are just too afraid to jump out because society has told us, get or keep that good paying job with benefits. Do you know if you just made a shit ton of money, you could pay for your own benefits? But nobody really tells you that, right? And when I listen to these entrepreneurial stories around when they decided to make the leap like full time into their business, most people in their corner, like their family and friends, will always tell them, I don't think he should do it. It's a bad idea. They laugh at you. And then it takes forever. But when it hits, if you are successful and you're really hungry to be successful, all you're doing to them, you're just laughing. You're laughing at all the naysayers. And you hear it from every story. Yeah, I've heard it too. Well, Jasper, you should just keep a good paying job and keep your benefits. You know, it's tough out there. And I was like, yeah, but me going this route, the route that's less traveled, is going to result in me being a millionaire a lot quicker than a lot of my friends who work 9 to 5s, right? Who have the stable income, because you can't do enough in your job in most regards. And like, unless you're in sales, and a lot of people aren't in sales. So you don't give yourself the opportunity to make all this income. So hopefully you become a really good investor. So the other thing I want to share about all these degrees that people have is not only do you have a lot of student loan debt, but then you get the house, you get the car, and now you have all this debt. So when you look at their numbers, they may be earning a lot, have a really good title. You know, it all looks like success on the outside. But when you look at the numbers, I'm like, yeah, you're successful in some regards. But when I think of success, I look at the balance sheet. How much are you worth? And a lot of us are in the red simply because of all the student loan debt. And we don't work a job that's allowing us to pay off our loan in a reasonable amount of time. If you've gone the public service route, you already not making enough money. Like I've had a few clients and people over the years who've pursued like advanced degrees. And then when they tell me how much debt they have, I'm like, shit, man, it's going to be a minute. It's going to be a minute before you can pay off this debt. And some people have already gotten comfortable that they're not going to be able to pay off this debt during their lifetime. And that's sad. Because if I had to take out some debt, I'm already going to think, how quick can I pay this back? And you should, but that's the entrepreneur in me. So some people have just gotten comfortable with understanding that, you know what, I can't get out. I won't get out of debt. I'm always going to have this student loan. You know, then I'm going to get a mortgage and have another loan on my balance sheet. Then I'm going to have a car loan. And God forbid you have credit card debt. And so this is my other concern around all these degrees that people I know get. You have all this other debt that you're going to have that has a substantial balance. And then you have the nerve to have credit card debt. That's why you need me. You need to talk to Mr. BuildWealth so we can figure out a game plan to help you just change the way you think. Because at the rate that you're going, it's just not going to work out for you financially in the long run. And again, by some measure, you are successful because you've obtained the degrees. You have the letters after your name. You have the car, the house, the dog, the whatever all the things that, are they really making you money? Are you really successful? It makes us feel good that we have all these material items, but I love getting back to that balance sheet and just seeing like, how much? Yeah, looks good, but, or nah, it doesn't look good. Like you out here clowning. So, I wanted to challenge some of your thinking. And if you have an insane amount of student loan debt, maybe the government's going to help you out. Maybe they won't. But we can't keep waiting around for somebody else to bail us out. Like we're not the big financial institution. So we almost got to tell ourselves that we've got to get creative on how we're going to attack our debt and be a lot more disciplined and have some goals and set some milestones. Because I think we could do a lot more if we just didn't have all this debt starting out. Like it's like starting the race, and when they hit the gun, like you're tied up and you have to untie yourself. Like that's how I feel when I talk to a lot of my clients, because now they're in their mid 30s and early 40s and they have yet to really amass any real assets. And so I think to myself, well, imagine if you had a better head start. So I'm not saying don't go get extra degrees, but it's kind of a double-edged sword for most people, is that if you can get your education paid for, by all means, pursue those opportunities. But for some, we need to really think about taking out more debt just to get another piece of paper. So if it's worth it, you do it, but you really got to sit down and really do a game plan to make sure that it's worth that investment and how quick of a return will you receive. So just think about that, right? And if you think about your social working friends who have the MSW or whatever it is, I think that's the right letters, but that's one of them at least. But I've heard too many of these stories where they have to go get this advanced degree, then they do the licensing and the hours worked, and then they still don't make a lot of money, but yet they've amassed all this debt. So if you are trying to figure out your financial life, and I would say student loans or just debt in general kind of has you down, holla at me. Let's talk it out. Schedule a 15-minute phone call with me. Let's come up with a strategy that's going to help you to, one, just get in a better place mentally and emotionally around the debt that you do have. And then let's figure out an attack plan, and we're going to attack. Because once I get you in the right mindset, and I'm really good at getting you hyped up, and then I just want to see you execute. And we're going to celebrate every little win, the big ones, the small ones, the ones in between. And that's how you do this thing called life. But for what it's worth, some of y'all just, they're not going to do right, and we're going to keep complaining about maybe the government's going to bail us out and we'll never figure it out. But I'm here to say I'm willing to help you if you want to, if you want the help, if you feel like you need the help. You know, Mr. BuildWealth's door is always open. So go get it, y'all. Let's get rid of this debt, and let's start investing and saving for our futures. All right, I'll catch y'all next time.